Gentlemen, I'd like to welcome you all here at the Geneva Press Club for this press conference. A warm welcome here from Mr. Pierre Rucci, director of the press club. He could not make it today, but I'm here to welcome you in his name. Today's press conference is organized by the PEC, Press Emblem Campaign. We are here to give an award, the PEC Award 2022. And for this we have Mr. Blaise Lempen, President of the Press Emblem Campaign, who will have a speech, and Mrs. Ekaterina Glikman, Deputy Editor of Novaya Gazeta Europe, who is here also to receive the prize. So without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Blaise Lempen, and we'll be back for some questions at the end of the press conference. Thank you very much. Mr. Lempen, you have the floor.
Okay. Thank you. Just a few words to introduce our speaker. The Press Emblem Campaign decided to reward Russian journalist Ekaterina Glikman for her ongoing and exemplary commitment to press freedom in Russia. The journalist is currently working from Switzerland as the deputy editor of Novaya Gazeta Europe, founded in April 2022 by the former Novaya Gazeta journalist who had to flee Russia. The state of press freedom in Russia has deteriorated considerably since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, decided by President Vladimir Putin in February 2022. Many Russian journalists have chosen to go into exile to continue to work freely. The PEC 2022 Award for the Protection of Journalists is dedicated to them. At the end of March 2022, Novaya Gazeta was forced to cease its activities in Russia, and at the beginning of April, Novaya Gazeta Europe was established. Ekaterina Glikman lives in Schaffhausen, the north of Switzerland, and is married to a Swiss journalist. Ekaterina has been working for Novaya Gazeta for more than 20 years and has collaborated with journalist Anna Politkovskaya until her killing in 2006. And Nobel Peace Prize winner Dmitry Muratov, among others. 6 journalists of the opposition newspaper have been killed over the years. Ekaterina continues her fight for free information from Switzerland. She and the entire Novaya Gazeta Europe team deserve our encouragement until Russia finds its way back to freedom, hopefully. It is in Moscow that the fate of Ukrainians in Europe is at stake, and we must support the Russians who oppose the war crimes perpetrated every day by the Kremlin in Ukraine. Ekaterina Glikman graduated from the Faculty of Journalism of Moscow State University. She joined Novaya Gazeta in 2002. She worked in the investigative department. Her first boss, Yuri Chekochin, was murdered in 2003. As an investigative journalist, Ekaterina published investigations about the illegal activities of high-ranking officials and corruption in state institutions. The main theme for her was investigative reports about large-scale criminal fishing, poaching, and the fishing mafia in the Russian Far East. In 2019, she moved to Switzerland. When military censorship following the outbreak of war in Ukraine forced Novaya Gazeta to suspend operation and part of its team left the country, she was involved in the creation of Novaya Gazeta Europe and has been working as deputy editor ever since. Thank you, Ekaterina, for coming to Geneva. We will listen to your testimony with great interest. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It works, yeah. Thank you very much. I need to say that it's really great moral support for me and for my team. Because yes, we living in self-blaming mood all these months. Many of us feel big pain and torturing ourselves with questions like what we did wrong and how did we let it happen. And we know there is no answer for this question, but we keep thinking this way. So it's a big surprise actually to be awarded being Russian journalist, because honestly, being Russian when your country started ugly war, you not expect any good anymore. So it was a big surprise, and I'm really very grateful. And so I would like to tell you how we managed to do our job now in these circumstances. Yes, our newspaper was forced to suspend their job in Moscow after 4 months after we been awarded with Nobel Peace Prize. That's quite a way. Yes, and part of the team moved away. I would say run away actually, because it was so quick decision and rush and not easy. Mostly young people, mostly young part of our team moved away because it's actually easier for young people to relocate, to like cut all connections with your country. It's not easy. So it was easier for them, but not easy actually, even for young ones. We started from scratch, from nothing. We didn't have literally nothing, like no visas, no permission to stay, no money, no home, no even computers, equipment, nothing. But the name and the reputation. And now we achieved already a lot, and I'm very proud of my team, how it actually possible, how it could happen. We started in April, and 9 days after we started, we were already blocked in Russia. So we could not promote our new, freshly made media in normal way, how you normally like do it. We couldn't reach our readers, potential readers. So now we have 100,000 visitors on our website per day, sometimes even more if something serious happens. And this is not because we found these people, but because these readers found out themselves, reach out themselves. They can use, living in Russia, they can use VPN to read us. And also there are 2 platforms still working in Russia. It's not blocked, not banned in Russia. It's YouTube and Telegram channel. Why they are not blocked? Because they are used a lot by propaganda. So they don't want to make harm to their own propaganda media. So we can use Telegram channel to distribute our news and our articles. We have 122,000 subscribers on Telegram and 100,000 followers on YouTube. So now we are like 58 people in team. Mostly we stay in Riga, Latvia, and we are very grateful to Riga government, to Latvia government, that they provided very quickly in the very beginning of war humanitarian visas for our journalists, so they could quickly flee the country. being actually in danger. Many of them were in real danger. And now we are waiting for next step because with humanitarian visa in Riga you cannot actually legally walk. You only can arrive this way, but then you need some different kind of visa or permission to stay. So this is a big problem right now because they made a new law forbidden, not forbidden, but like make more complicated the procedure to obtain resident permit. So, but we hope that they will find a solution and will not deport our journalists back to the country where they are in danger. So I am actually in hope, so that everything will work out somehow. We still have journalists working for us from Russia, which is very important because so many journalists left the country, and actually how we can get truthful, verified information from what's going on inside the country. That's also a big problem, how to work with Russian journalists right now, because we cannot fund them from Europe. And they are working at a great risk. Many of them working using pseudonyms, but some refuse and continue to publish with their real names. It's if it will be like, if it would be in my hands, I would stop it, but I cannot. They are adults, and you cannot force people to refuse to publish article with their own name. So unfortunately, there are some complications because of that. For example, our journalist Andrei Zayakin was arrested. He was publishing with his name, real name. He was arrested, and they put him on home arrest, like he was forced not to use any communication devices, so literally he could not walk. And then he ran, and I'm happy to say that he is safe now abroad, but he needed to leave country legally. And another one, Leonid Gozman, our columnist, was also arrested. First one time, then they released him and arrested second time. After 2 minutes, he left the prison, really on the doorway. So after 2 imprisonment, he was released, and he also left the country. He didn't want to leave, so it was just to avoid one more time in prison. So now he is abroad. But others are still inside the country. I would say not many, unfortunately. And some journalists, I just want to give you some impression how it looks. Some journalists, for example, who work only with me like an editor, we hide them so well that my team doesn't know their names, and sometimes even they don't know their gender. We must be so cautious. And I'm always feeling great anxiety for them, like fear. I always think, how are they and what will be with them? So I wish that when everything will be over, we will be able to name all of them, because they are real heroes. I'm sitting in Switzerland and just editing and coordinating, but those who are on the field, they are real heroes, and I will check in the future that every name will be known for publicity. But now I just can tell you that one of my journalists is hiding inside Russia, far away, somewhere in the village, because we didn't manage to evacuate this person abroad. And but there was an article we needed to publish. It was very important for society to publish those information this person revealed. So we made a decision to publish without journalist name and to hide journalists. And we still hiding this journalist. It's already quite a long time. Let's hope everything will work out good. And another journalist also was writing for us from occupied territory, which is extremely risky. You know, it's a horrible sentence, I would say now, but to be journalist right now, located in the Ukraine, is more safe. Not frontline, of course, just, for example, Kiev, it's more safe than to be a journalist located in Russia. That's horrible to say, but it's true for me. So my life is like everyday worries and everyday check, like, are you okay, are you okay, are you okay? I check everyone and feel myself sometimes like in a weird position, being in Switzerland when people risking their lives. So I'm very privileged here and privileged. I'm also feeling big difference with those who are still in Russia, that I can express everything here freely. I can say what I think. That's maybe sounds for you weird, like it's normal, it's like to breathe. But people in Russia, they cannot even show others what they think. Even show, not even say, but just to show. They need to hide so well because it's dangerous. In Russia now, it's dangerous to press button like on Facebook. This is how it's life there. Because there are some people who were under pressure from government for likes. Not for comments, even for likes. That's the situation. So, talking about our newspaper, we have 65–70% our readers are still in Russia. They are people who were always reading Novaya Gazeta and who are against war. And it's like our old supporters. Others are in Europe or in USA, mostly, of course, Russian immigrants with the same views. And I think we have good chance to grow a lot. We already published 2 papers, printed papers in Latvia. We just tried, in Russian language, we just tried to attract Russian-speaking population of Latvia. And just in few days, in Germany, Russian-speaking newspaper will be published with 60,000 issues all over the country will be distributed. So I think in Germany we have good chances to continue to print newspaper. What else to say? You may ask me what's the point of our job? We, as Bles told you already, I became a journalist in 22,000 years ago. It was exact time when Putin came to power. And I was witnessing from the inside how freedom of speech was shrinking until it disappeared completely. My first newspaper was shut down in 2001. I'm talking about this now because I want to tell you that it's not like recent history. It's not what happened like this year with Russia and with freedom of speech in Russia. It was from the very beginning same this way. It was just going and going. And as Bles told you already, my first boss or my first chef in Novaya Gazeta was killed in 2003 for his job. And then Anna Politkovskaya was killed in 2006. And all 6 journalists, all 6 colleagues of mine from Novaya Gazeta were killed during Putin's rule. So it's a long story. It's not just this year. Unfortunately, we had this feeling that we were fighting this regime alone all these years. We tried to reach out the world, but I would say we didn't at the end. And I hope through this experience with what we have now, war in Ukraine, horrible war in Ukraine, now the whole world realizes what's actually going on, what kind of regime is in Russia, and what it can do to the world, not only to Russians anymore. It's already an international problem, and the whole world cannot stop this regime. So that sounds very tragic, I would say. I want to change this mood. You know, I tell you about my team. Young people, I just visited them in Riga. They are mostly like in their 20s. And I realized that nobody among them knew Anna Politkovskaya life. I knew her, they don't. But you know what, I feel from them this spirit. They carry in this spirit. I don't know how it happened. They are so young. They haven't seen a lot, but they carry in this spirit. So that gives me impression that actually this spirit and this need to seek the truth, it's unkillable. You know, you cannot kill it. It will always be there. I also would like to say about Russian population. It might look not nice now, because they are so poisoned by propaganda. But yet, they had this propaganda within 20 years. And there are about 20% of them who not fall for that. How? It's surprisingly big amount of people who really don't want this war, who really understand what's going on in reality. So they kind of resistant, they have immunity against propaganda. It also gives me hope that actually humanity is not so hopeless. So what's the point of our job when we cannot compete with propaganda? We never will be able to compete with propaganda. It's even funny to compare it. But there are two good reasons for us to do our job. First reason is to register, to record everything what is happening, to keep it for the history and for the future justice. Justice will come. It always comes, just later. And the second reason is that we need to support these people who are resistant to propaganda. We need to provide them information. We cannot leave them alone, face to face to propaganda. That's not fair, I think. That's why all these young people who moved from Russia and cut all possibilities maybe to go back, nobody knows if they will be able to go back and when and if, but they did it, and for that, for purpose to continue their job. So I would like to repeat that I'm very, very proud of these young people who work with me. And it will change. It always changes. It takes time, but it will change. And we will be here for people when they will be ready to read real information. We will be here for them. That's what drives me through this situation. Thank you.
Maintenant, on va passer donc aux questions. Donc Robert.
Merci de donner votre nom et l'organisation pour laquelle vous travaillez. Merci.
Robert James Parsons, independent journalist. Given your situation outside of Russia and your removal from what was originally your base of operations, what sort of financial support do you have? And given the role the United States is playing in this, so far $77 billion for the Ukrainian war effort, what sort of financing are you getting from the United States? And particularly, are you getting money from the National Endowment for Democracy?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, the situation is unique. We are cut it from our readership, so we cannot operate in normal, healthy way. So donations are the only way we can survive. We got like 10-15% from private donations, and the rest we cover with big donations from JX Fund. That fund was set up very quickly after war started by Reporters Without Borders, and they finance a lot. And also we established association Friends of Novaya Gazeta Europe in Switzerland, and we also receive donations from even from media houses. From it's like solidarity, journalistic solidarity. We have many donations from them, from different newspapers, from just journalists and editors-in-chief of some newspapers, and we also are involved in program support of Google. We win competition in Google support, and we also communicate close in financial way with Foreign Minister of Germany. They also support us. So it's like mostly fundraising. Foreign minister, we work with foreign minister also. Ministry.
But you don't receive any funds from the National Endowment for Democracy?
No, I think it's not a good way, actually. We would prefer this situation when we are just fundraising, put us in the position of absolute independence, actually. We're not dependent on anyone. That we never had actually such a freedom before. It's for me, it's a new experience. It's interesting.
Une autre question. Sinon, moi, I had a question for Ekaterina. What do you think? How long the war in Ukraine will last? Have you a point of view? It is a question of months, years. What do you think?
What can I say? You know, I know deep in my heart. I know what will be the result. Who will win and who will lose. This I know. Ukraine will win. But how long it will take, unfortunately, nobody can tell you, I think. And if somebody says it, I do not trust completely. I think nobody knows, unfortunately, because it can last. It goes to the, for me, to the certain end, but it can last long. It's unpredictable. Sorry, no answer.
Question, how do you think you can achieve a regime change in Russia? Is it a plausible change? For example, the army can react if there are many killings among the soldiers, and we can imagine a military putsch in Moscow. Is it possible, or what do you think?
You know, Russian history, it always was absolutely unpredictable. Everything could happen. I only can say that we don't have legal instruments to change the situation inside country. All these instruments you would use here in democracy, we don't have them. And nation, just common people cannot go with bare hands and fight against army. So I don't see how it can be changed the normal way. So my opinion is yes, if army stops supporting Putin and his friends, then maybe there will be a change. What about putsch? I actually don't see this, but who knows again.
With regard to the paper's editorial stand, for exactly 7 years, from 15 February 2015 to 16 February 2022, when the Pentagon ordered the bombardment of Donbass, this has been borne out. It has been documented. Every public statement by Putin, Lavrov, Shoigu, with regard to Ukraine, insisted on the Minsk Accords and their status as international law. More recently, just now, Viktor Poroshenko has said the Minsk Accords were negotiated to buy time so that we could prepare for the invasion of Russia. You can do with that what you want, but that's what he said. What was your editorial stand for these 7 years when the Russian leadership was constantly hammering on international law, particularly the Minsk Accords, which were international law because one of the two international guarantors, France, had brought them before the Security Council and had them voted into international law in a formal resolution. What was your stance then for those 7 years? Were you backing the Minsk Accords? You understand your general orientation regarding the Minsk Accords as a point of reference for reporting on what was happening in Ukraine.
Could you please repeat? Did you hear better? We couldn't hear very well from here. I'm sorry.
Too close.
More close, yeah.
Closer, like this. Is that better? The Minsk Accords were made into international law by the Security Council. And so you have Putin, Shoigu, and Lavrov for 7 years constantly insisting on the implementation of the Minsk Accords to settle this. At the same time, Putin and Lavrov refused to recognize the independence of the two regions that had broken away, saying, and this was a formal statement when Macron came forward with his Normandy formula, it is a Ukrainian matter. It must be settled between the two regions and Kiev. So what was your orientation regarding that? Because you have exactly 7 years when there is an international law document stipulating what the situation should be. You have the two guarantors refusing to implement it. And you have Russia, which insists on staying out of the dispute, nonetheless insisting international law must be implemented. So what was the orientation of Novaya Gazeta during those 7 years? How did you perceive this situation? How did you perceive the international debate? What were your editorials oriented to?
That's a very complicated question. You were talking about international law and Putin and Shoigu and Lavrov, yes. We, inside country, we know that there are no rules for this state. But the world was trying to play according to rules with this state. I think this failed, so I didn't get really completely what you were talking about, I'm sorry. Just, Yeah, as I told you, I understand very well President of Ukraine Zelensky when he's saying now that we do not negotiate with Putin. But Okay. I think I get your point. Okay. Our orientation was that one. We sent our journalists to the war zone, to the conflict zone, until it was possible. After one of our journalists was arrested by these criminals who were in charge in Donetsk National Republic, and they put him into cellar and beat him. After that, we didn't have any more possibility to work there. So, as a journalist, we can only cover the situation this way. We can send our journalists somewhere and publish reports. What these journalists see with their own eyes. The rest is, sorry, it's a politic. This is a field of politics. I prefer to walk on the field. And we, you know, in Novaya Gazeta, last issue in Moscow was on the cover of this issue. I remember there was a report from Ukraine made by one of our journalists, and it was written like what she saw with her own eyes. And there were two eyes of her on the cover. It was exactly our point. This is how we work. The rest is, we would give it to politician. Sorry, I maybe answer not the way you expected me, but this is my opinion.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We have understood your question. Thank you very much, Robert. Jean-Philippe, you have a question?
Yeah, Jean-Philippe Yotzi, I'm Vice President of Press Emblem Campaign. When we had a discussion before this press conference, we were talking about the situation that you have with your journalists, especially on the field in Ukraine. How is it possible or impossible for your team to work on the Ukraine battlefield?
We are very lucky to have a correspondent. Her name is Olga Musafirova. She's in Ukraine, so I can openly tell her name. Olga Musafirova. We are very proud of her. She was working for Novaya Gazeta for many years, and when Novaya Gazeta could not continue to work, she started to work with us with Novaya Gazeta Europe. And since then, she covered a lot for us. She is in Kiev. She do not work from the front line. That we decided not to send anyone to the front line. We already lost too many people, and I think we cannot afford some other tragedy. So we have her in Kiev, and she also travel around the country and make reports for us. And we also use some freelancer journalists. So I would say that our coverage of Ukrainian situation is very good. We received messages from the front line, from soldiers, that they read our newspaper, they follow it on Telegram. That was very touching. And also, as I told before, we have a secret journalist working on the occupied territory of the Ukraine. But this name I cannot reveal. We also would love to be able to go to Ukraine and to send our journalists, reporters to make reports, but the situation is that Ukraine not allowed Russian journalists to go in Ukraine, so that's understandable, but that would be actually a big help for us to be able to send someone, reporters. We would like actually to have always someone there, maybe changing people, but always someone who is reporting from the very field. I hope that will change.
Merci. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions? D'accord. Bon, une dernière fois alors.
I wish to put something on the record you are obviously not aware of. Because as a student of Russian studies and a historian since 1973, I've been following Russia longer than you have. I could be your grandfather for that matter. Russia, the Soviet Union, had one of the best constitutions ever drafted in 1936. It was not implemented for the most part. When Gorbachev created the Duma, his goal was to remove the power from the Politburo and the Supreme Soviet and place it in the hands of the elected representatives of the people. After Gorbachev had been overthrown, George Herbert Walker Bush sent to Russia Strobe Talbot and Jeffrey Sachs with a specific mandate to deindustrialize Russia and make it handed over to the transnational corporations. They found that they found constant obstacles coming from the Duma. They told Washington. The State Department drafted a new constitution, translated it into Russian, and forced Yeltsin to implement it. That's the constitution now. It took the power from the Duma and placed it in the hands of the president. When that was Yeltsin, that was good. Now it's bad. Look carefully at what...
What is your question, sorry?
As I said, to put it on the record, look carefully at what Putin does. Everything is legal. And if it seems heavy-handed, and sometimes it is, it's because he's acting within the framework of the Constitution imposed on Russia by the United States. He's as I said, I'm putting it on the record. I know I said, at the outset, I said it would not be a question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the point of view. So, is there any other question, Patrick? No? No, okay, after. Okay. So we will give the PEC award to Ekaterina. Just 1 minute. Disposition. Nous, après, on a un board meeting.
And if anyone interested in the Association of Friends of Novaya Gazeta Europe, I put some brochure at the entrance. Welcome to the membership if you would like. It's